and therefore it is my pleasure to welcome on stage our moderator for this session, Vineeka Rao, Executive Director at INSEAD Emerging Markets Institute, a banker turned real estate expert turned educationalist. Vineeka has done it all. Her TEDx talk titled Dare to Dream has been an inspiration for many. Welcome, Vineeka.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is a wonderful time to be working in education, and I feel really privileged. Privileged because there's no doubting the fact that education shapes the future of the world by shaping the minds of future generations. However, as I'm sure Andrew's going to tell us when we find him, how education is imparted today, to whom and when, is impacted very much by technology. I work with INSEAD, and we are also beginning to combine our traditional classroom learning with a lot of virtual learning over the web. We're beginning to develop programs where we can take the highest levels of management education to the most unlikely audiences, even farmers in rural India. So are the traditional barriers of education breaking down completely? Are we moving towards a new world where anyone will have access to education? And are these models of free or inexpensive education for all sustainable business models in the long run? We live in a VUCA world, and I think today a college degree is probably a smaller guarantee of secure employment than maybe vocational training. So what should we be telling our children to focus on? To answer these and some other exciting questions that I'm sure you'll be sending us, we have a wonderful panel today. I'm going to request each of our panelists to introduce themselves briefly. They're all doing breakthrough stuff in education, so it'll be very interesting to find out what they're doing in very different ways. I have been told that we have exactly 5 minutes to introduce ourselves, so I think we're going to have to stick to the time limit, and I understand a warning bell may go off in 4 minutes, so just for your information. But we do have time for questions afterwards, so please do start sending in your questions. We have a technology pigeonhole, and I think there are instructions on each of your tables to tell you how you can use it to send in your questions. Otherwise, I'm happy to just take any questions from the floor. So if I may start by introducing our first panelist today, Ravi, who is an old friend and also a former banker who's switched to education. Ravi is now Head of Education Leadership at the Azim Premji Foundation. He drives the foundation's ambitious effort to create a new education system from primary school level onwards. He's passionate about equity in society and believes in providing equal opportunity to each and every child. Ravi.
I was actually looking forward to listening to Andrew Ng before coming up on stage. Well, I haven't got the fortune of doing so, because we work at the opposite end of the spectrum from where Andrew works. So back at Azim Premji Foundation, which is where I work, we are engaged with children who are in the primary schools, studying in some of the most backward parts of India. I'm talking about the government schools. Just to give you a sense of what these government schools are all about, there are something like 200 million children studying in these schools, in about 1.5 million schools, with about 5.5 million teachers. So there's nothing like that, as complex as that, anywhere in the world. And these children, most of them come from illiterate households. And to complicate matters further, they have all sorts of challenges, ranging from poverty to diseases to epidemics to malnutrition. And of course, they bear the brunt of all societal ills, ranging from child marriage to child labor to migration for livelihood. I don't know if you know this, but something like 5 million children drop out of school for a few months when their families have to migrate for livelihood, or even sexual abuse. Numbers are that 7 million children below the age of 14 are involved in the sex trade in India. So it's a hugely challenging environment in which these children are living and growing up and going to schools. And to add to that, in these schools, the learning levels don't tend to be too good. So if you look at some of the well-published data on learning levels, something like 50% of the children in grade 5 would not be able to handle grade 2 text, reading, or math. So as you can imagine this, so it's a real unfortunate double whammy. And that's what we're trying to work on. We're trying to improve the system. We're working on systemic change. Now, how do we go about what needs to be done? What is the kind of change that's required? Before I get into that, I want to spend just a minute on what has been done. Because very often, a lot of people tend to be very dismissive of what has been achieved in the Indian education system or the public education system. Just to give you a context, in 1947, the literacy levels in India were at 12%. So you're talking about a country that inherited, with a population that was 88% illiterate. The out-of-school children, 95% of the children were out of school. Malnutrition levels at extremely high levels, mass poverty, things like infant mortality, something like 255 in every 1,000 who lost their lives before turning 5. Average age of an Indian in 1931 was 23 years. So this is the country that took on this whole education system. And if you look at the statistics today, we've got something like a 74% literacy level. We have something like 100% enrollment levels in the schools. There is a school within a kilometer of 97% of the habitations across India. And across India, and this is the most amazing thing, 150 million children are given a hot meal every day. So if you ask me, and I look at that in a 67-year journey, historical journey, those are fairly staggering achievements. And I wouldn't like to sort of underestimate what has been achieved. But yes, there is a hell of a lot more to be done, and we need to look ahead in terms of what needs to be done. So if you look at what sort of needs to be done, for me, to improve quality of education, there is one word that comes to my mind. And that's the one word, if you take away from this session, I think I would have got my message across. And that word is equity. And for my banking friends, I'm not talking about capital and money. I'm talking about equity in a social sense. I'm talking about equity in education. So what does equity in education mean? It's very simple. Equity in education for me means that quality of learning or the quality of education that you're talking about is reaching every child in the country. That for me is equity, and that's what we need to work towards if you want to improve the education system in the country. How do we go about doing that? Well, like I said earlier, there are lots and lots of things that need to be worked on in education, whether it's curriculum, textbooks, infrastructure, you name it. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in education. But the most urgent need and the most burning problem in education right now in India is the quality of teachers. A child's learning is directly impacted or most significantly impacted by the quality of teachers. And unfortunately, the quality of teachers in India is at an abysmal low. And the reason it is at that low is because the system they come through, which is the teacher education system, is an absolute shambles. So the whole B.Ed degree process through which teachers become teachers is an absolute shambles. I mean, I would call it a scam. In the last decade or two, there have been a large number of private colleges that started offering B.Ed curriculums, and it's an absolute disaster. I know that time is very tight, so I'm going to just give you two sort of directional thoughts on what we should be thinking about when we look at improving education in the country. And it's very simple. The first thing that we must all understand is that work that needs to be done has to be done at very basic, very fundamental levels. There are no simple, easy gizmo solutions to fixing education in the country. So that's the first part. And the second one is you will find a lot of solutions coming up to improve education in the country. And there are two simple questions I'd urge you to ask, because I ask that and I always find, sort of negative answers coming. And those two questions are, first question is, are these ideas based on sound education theory on child learning and child development? Because if it is not, then it should be rejected straight away. It has no place at all. And the second question you need to ask yourself, is this idea or this solution that is being proposed equally relevant for the more privileged sections of the society, i.e. your own kids? Do you think that solution is also acceptable for your own kids? And if the answer to these two questions is in the negative, I don't think there should be any room for those ideas. Because all it does is, at best, is a distraction, and at worst, it creates a stratified society in India with lowering learning levels, especially in the underprivileged sections. Friends, there is no panacea in education. We look for silver bullets, be it in sort of, the glorious markets or in the sort of techno-utopian solutions of, education technology. The fact of the matter is, to fix public education, it's a hard, dirty, messy, complicated, long-term process. And we better decide that and focus on that. There is no other way to go about it. And a classic example of how a good public education system can make a huge difference to education is right here. Singapore these days is on the top of the charts as far as learning levels of children are concerned. And the reason they are on top is, I would argue, because of the fantastic public education system they have. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you very much.